And now, it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Welcome to Boomer Life here on CIL 650. I'm Sterling Fox, and yes, the doctor is in the house in the form of Dr. Paul Zickler, the medical director of YesWellness.com. Dr. Paul, good to see you again, sir. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah, I'm really glad to be here, although I barely made time between all my Christmas commitments.
Well, no kidding. We're what, 4 days away here? It's the time of much festivity, much commitments, and because of all of that, in a strange way, it's a very stressful time of year. It's not supposed to be, but it's an incredibly stressful time of year,
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
I don't know what I'm doing here today.
Well, I'm glad you popped in for a visit because, in these times, we get caught up. It's so easy to get caught up. I mean, I love Christmas, and most of us do, because of all, it takes us back to our childhood and the magic, and there's still some magic in it all.
Absolutely.
But, we can get caught up in the routine and the trappings of Christmas to the point, well, where in many cases we practically miss the point, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Well, that is even exemplified because we're all connected with Facebook and tweeting and whatever,
right,
constantly.
Sure.
So it's even hard to get a little quiet time away from the messages and the hoopla around Christmas.
Well, and of course, and at Christmas there are things we want to do, there are things we love to do because we've been doing them since we were little, and then there are things we kind of have to do. If we're an employed person and the company throws a bit of a bash, well, it's considered really bad form not to go. And then, of course, there's the relatives and the clan and all of that stuff. It's pretty easy to get caught up and swept away by it all, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's very difficult to control unless you take a really active part in terms of making a decision. So those things that you've already planned ahead of time, set the time aside. Do those, and if you like doing them, if you don't like doing them, there are some things that you've been doing and you don't like doing them. If you discuss it over with your spouse and your family, or the situation with certain groups of friends, then make that decision.
Right.
But think ahead and try to fit things in that you can manage. We're just talking about before we got in the air about going to your office Christmas party, and then your spouse's office Christmas party.
Right.
And then you've got this party, but then there's another friend that's got a party just the same evening. So you try to get through the first one in a rush to make the second one. Well,
and we do that.
Absolutely do.
It's that time of year. Hit a couple of parties or more in an evening during this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you've got to think ahead and say, okay, I can make this one, and I'm going to enjoy this one.
Sure.
But I can't make that one. And, that other one, you may say in your RSVP, listen, I'm so sorry I can't make it this time, but I'd certainly like to meet you or go out with you or spend the evening with you or go out for dinner on January the 27th or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
And so you're not trying to fit in everything all at once.
What's really funny about all of this, Dr. Zickler, is this is Boomer Life, and you and I are both boomers, and so is most everybody listening to the show right now. We should know better. We've been at this a long time. We've decades of doing Christmas. You'd think you'd have it figured out by now, but it doesn't work that way because it's such an emotional occasion too, isn't it?
That's exactly right, and it's getting that involvement where we become involved in our emotions, and so the rituals that we have developed when we were younger, if we're not doing them, we have guilt over that.
Mm-hmm.
The rituals, or the connections with family, with some of which you don't see most of the year, but you have to get together with at Christmas time.
Right.
Those are kind of situations where, all of a sudden they're upon us again this year. We were going to manage this in the spring of last year, but we all of a sudden.
Didn't we have a talk about this 6 months ago?
Yes.
Weren't we not going to do this year?
Exactly.
And of course, everything goes right sideways now, doesn't it?
Yeah, and being so close now to Christmas, we're right in the midst of it. We're in the middle of it.
That's
and
right.
So some of the things
the good baking is already done.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of the stresses have been already addressed, but there's still increasing stress in the last week.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Dr. Paul, who loves to make lists and blogs relentlessly at yeswellness.com, has brought another list with us today on tips to prevent holiday stress and depression. But before we get to these tips, and some of them are terrific, by the way, you mentioned something to me again just a moment or so ago before we turned our mics on, that you said at this time of the year, the Christmas season, the holidays, you seem to think, based on your years of research, that women can be more stressed out at this time of year than men. Why is that?
I don't think it's can. They are.
Okay.
Because they are mothers, moms, wives. They are the kingpin that runs the holiday season, and they are, generally speaking, the social convener for the family. And it's not just for the husband, for the spouse, but for the family. And
absolutely.
she's the regulator. She is the organizer. And so you can imagine, so not only the regular stress of family management that goes on every day of the week,
right,
including her work if she's working, which a lot of young women are doing and looking after a family.
Sure.
Now there's the added stress of getting the presents, getting the family going to different functions, getting them all organized for Christmas, probably looking after Christmas dinner, or if she's not looking after Christmas dinner, she's going to a home
where she'll contribute,
right, or in a situation where she knows that it's going to be stressful because somebody's going to be managing how she's supposed to be in that Christmas situation.
Right.
And there are a lot of expectations that she has of the members of the family. There are things that she expects the spouse to do, they expect the children to do, and when they don't meet her expectations, things get frazzled.
Right.
And so you can see, how that's going to affect her sanity around Christmas time.
The expectations, it's interesting because, a lot of times we imagine expectations. But at this time of year, Dr. Paul, it's different, isn't it? Because there's a lot of tradition that is part of what Christmas is, and the repeating of rituals and those sorts of things, and the responsibility to get it right when you repeat the ritual, those sorts of things.
Yeah, and so, and part of that is acknowledging, number one thing is acknowledging your feelings, and acknowledging that. Some of them, just telling yourself, hey, this is okay. I mean, if I'm feeling stressed, I am feeling stressed, and how am I going to manage it? But not trying to tell yourself I can manage all this. Or there's some problem with me, or I can't manage it.
Right.
I'm feeling anxious and depressed. So that's really acknowledging your feelings. And you know what? Sometimes a ritual that's been part of the family system for years is time to let go.
Yes. Yeah.
Time to let go. And then, things change. If your family, some of us have grown, have married, and have moved away,
yes,
they can't come for Christmas.
Right.
And so you don't get despair that they're not coming, but do something different. There's Skyping the Christmas morning.
Sure.
There's all kinds of different ways and means of communicating now.
And the isolation, because we both, my wife and I, are from back east.
Yeah.
And we moved out here in the 70s.
Sure.
And then eventually raised a family out here. Well, we never once went back east to Christmas because it was so blinking expensive at this time of year. And you start throwing a few kids into the mix, it's a horrific amount of money.
Sure.
So, the stress came initially from not being there, not being in that original family scenario. But then when you start having children of your own, you start going, well, listen, we can do one of two things. We can sit around and mope again this Christmas because we're not with everybody else. Or we can start our own traditions. We can bring the best of what we brought with us when we moved here with us, and we can create a few more locally inspired traditions.
Absolutely.
And turn it into a positive.
Absolutely. And the thing is, those traditions may not be the ones that you're going to be following now.
Right.
And so you have to ease up on that and sort of acknowledge your feelings and know that things can change and go with it.
Acknowledge your feelings, by the way, the good doctor ever so cleverly slipped in number 1 on his list of items. I believe there are 10 to deal with holiday stress and depression. Acknowledging your feelings. Item number 1, Dr. Ziegler. What is reach out? You said item 2 here is reach out. What does that mean?
Well, that is really, if you are feeling stressed and lonely and or anxious or despondent, tell the people that you know that support you, let them know, so that you can sort of exude that and get that sort of off your plate and put it somewhere where you can manage it, and rather than keep it in and just creating more turmoil.
And part of the problem there is a lot of people, well, I don't want to be the holiday buzzkill. I mean, I don't want to be the mopey one that everybody doesn't want to be around for the next few weeks. So, but there are ways around that. For example, reaching out to the right person makes a big difference, doesn't it? Then you're not just whining. You're having an intellectual conversation with someone who gets you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then or the other side of that is if you if you know that you don't get along with one member of the family or a family friend, is to understand sort of where they're coming from and sort of understand why perhaps they may be performing the way they do.
Right.
And a lot of times that really helps you to get past a few days anyway. It may be not long lasting, but it at least gets you with reduced stress.
You know, it's interesting, Dr. Paul, because reaching out, item number 2 on this list, also it's about people who are alone at Christmas. This is a terrible, terrible time of year to be alone. I've been on the radio for a long, long time, and I've worked a lot of Christmases in my career, and I can tell you there is no sadder day to be a personality on the radio than Christmas.
Yeah. Because
people who are alone tend to call because they've got nobody else to talk to.
Yeah.
And some of the conversations are just heartbreaking.
Yes.
It's a tough day to work.
It is.
So the whole matter of reaching out is critical here, not just to family and friends because you're all stressed out and running around with too much to do. If the opposite is the case, if you're all alone and you have nothing to do, all the more reason to reach out.
Yes, yeah, and that's a really good point, Sterling, because I mean, just striking up a conversation in the train with who the person sitting beside you.
Yep.
I mean, or holding the door, or paying for somebody's coffee in front of you. I that the Starbucks
the pay it forward
pay
thing.
Forward.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it's those kind of pay forwards that are really at this time of the year seem to really reduce your stress.
Our guest is the medical director of YesWellness.com. Always a real treat to have Dr. Paul Ziegler with us on Boomer Life. We're talking about the holidays, just a few days ahead of the big one, and we've got a long list of items and tips to prevent holiday stress and depression. We've only got through 2. We'll carry on with lots more when we continue here on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.